What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with macro data, this evening we do have balance of trade, exports, and imports. In addition to that, Standing Committee National People's Congress is going to be throughout the whole week, and they are responsible for new policies. So potentially what was stated in the past is if trade gets a little bit worse for wear, then you could see stimulus talks. So at the end of the day, that will come potentially this week. Tuesday, inflation, PPI. Also Thursday, we have vehicle sales. Friday, new loans. So this is essentially like the, Super Bowl of Chinese data for this week. So could make for a very interesting time and volatile time in reality. And of course, that's not even counting the new registration numbers on Tuesday. Aside from that, companies unveiling the earnings, nothing really significant that's going to impact the market all that much. So this week is going to be more data driven as well as technicals. So I'll go over that in a second. Interestingly enough, though, also over the weekend, there hasn't really been any speculative topics associated to NIO. So it's been very, very quiet. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but just anticipate, again, a lot of volatility and maybe even just more of a reliance as well on the technicals because of that silence. On Friday, shorts did return 2.49 million shares. Going into this upcoming week, 11.56% of the free float is being shorted, works to be 178.33 million shares overall are being shorted. And DTC, this is something I've brought up time and time again, 2.87 days does really signal that shorts are still overextended, despite them returning from about looks like 15% short interest back in March to where it is now. Despite that, they're still overextended. So something to kind of keep in mind, although shorts, I feel like they are going to play some game. So when it comes down to options, the bulls feel that going into this upcoming week, 650 to 7 is realistic. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 550. So you kind of have a little bit more upside, but based on the options that was done on Friday, there is more negativity. And so the sentiment is rather negative. And ultimately, one thing to keep in mind, this is the open interest. So from last week, with us closing below $6, and for those of you that watched my early morning Friday video, this is exactly what I said, is that shorts and market makers are going to really suppress NIO below $6, which is exactly what happened. And then shorts in the second half of the day, they returned. And so it's kind of a lot of manipulation. So shorts tend to do a lot of damage first thing in the morning, and then they just kind of retreat time and time again. So it is rather unfortunate, but because of it closing at that 559, so that 6 and above strike prices all expire worthless. So you have 20,000 at that 6, and then 42,000 at that 650. So it is unfortunate. You have 10,000 at that 5, and then 10,000 at that 550. That's obviously in the money. And that won't really cause that much of a bump up in reality, because you can kind of see some of the transactions that did occur after hours on Friday on the dark pool. Kind of covers some of that, but regardless, you're not going to see anything crazy. Even looking forward into this upcoming week, though, you have, as far as strong walls, you have 8,000 at that 6, 9,000 at that 650, and then 13,000 at that 7. So nothing overly substantial. With it right now at 595, it closed exactly below this S2. So 596 is going to be that key point you really want to watch for it to get above early on in the week if you're going to see any sort of recovery. 567 is going to be the next strong support, and this is something that I've mentioned could potentially play out, is that the gap needs to be filled type of mentality, because even looking at Friday, you still have this very large gap, and it pretty much, you see a new rush of buyers at that 568. So potentially you might see some negativity in the early part of the week. Once it does get to this level, I do anticipate it to bounce off of that and trend higher, but I know this isn't what a lot of people want to hear, because when it was kind of at these levels, at the $6 range, people were screaming for $10, and oddly enough, people were actually mentioning like 60, as crazy as that sounds. But I think in reality, it does need to be filled before it kind of moves higher. But what do I know in life? Some people were saying that I was wrong on Friday, but turns out that's pretty much it did get suppressed below that $6 range, exactly like I mentioned. One thing that you do want to kind of watch for though is that algos are getting a little bit stronger. So of course, some of the attributing factors of what moves NIO is largely shorts as well as algos. So I think just a lot of that is going to most likely carry forward into this upcoming week as well. But let me know your general thoughts on that. One thing as well is that 633 is that 10-day moving average. That's more of a trend change, at least for the short term. So best case scenario, you'll see NIO really push higher and get above that early on in the week. But like I said, there's a lot of willing sellers from pretty much $6 all the way up to around $6.77. So just somewhat be aware of that. Aside from all of that fun stuff though, on the actual right over here, there hasn't really been all that much in new analyst ratings. So of course you had that rush associated to their most recent earnings. I would have anticipated a couple more, but I've already brought up all of these in previous videos, so nothing new. And most likely, based on this, you could see one, maybe new one. So Eugene, who does have a 73% success rating. Sorry for that, right there. The 73% success rating. And maybe Tina and possibly DBS as well. The rest of them seem to not really care all that much about NIO in general. So dependent on what they give for ratings, the market might really move accordingly. As a consensus over the last 3 months, $6.12 is that price target, representing a 2.86% upside. So that is also another thing that could really impact NIO, is if we get some bullish or bearish ratings. We'll just have to wait and see. But let me know your thoughts. Where do you see NIO going this week? Do you see it breaking below that 567, or do you see it bouncing off of that? In my opinion, like I said, I could be wrong, but I feel like this S3 is going to be hit, and then from there it'll kind of settle between this S1 and this S2. So it's a little bit more pain before things get better, but I think overall, if you think bigger picture from where NIO is at right now in comparison to several months ago, night and day difference. And sentiment as well is completely different as well. So a lot of optimism on the table, sometimes a little bit too much. Like I said, some people calling for $60 is very premature. And on a side note, a lot of people as well just kind of think that this is going to happen again, similar to what happened in 2020 and transitioning to 2021, where it just went up like crazy to $60. Keep in mind, during that time frame, like governments were like giving so much money away. There's complete, like, you can't really compare that scenario to now. It's just not realistic in my opinion. But I don't want to pop your guys' bubble. So if you think that's going to happen, then whatever. Keep on doing what you do. So let me know your thoughts on NIO. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.